My name is Veronica Stone. I'm 33 years old, and until recently, I believed that if you built your life carefully enough, nothing truly collapsed without warning. I work as a logistics coordinator in Denver. My days are structured, not rigid, just deliberate. I wake up at the same time every morning. I leave my apartment at 8. I stop at the same coffee shop where they already know my order. By 6, I'm usually home unless something slips. Evenings are simple. The gym, quiet dinners, sometimes just sitting on my couch with a book I actually finish. 3 years ago, I signed the lease on my apartment. It was mine before it became ours, before Marcus. Marcus Hale is 30, charming in a way that feels effortless. The kind of man who doesn't walk into a room, he settles into it like he's always belonged there. People don't question him. They adjust around him. We had been together a little over 2 years, living together for 9 months. The lease was in my name, always had been. But that never mattered to me while things were good. When you think you're building a future with someone, you don't keep score on little things. You don't track who pays for what or whose name is on which bill. You assume you're building something shared. That assumption lasted longer than it should have, because for the last 6 or 7 months, I had been miserable in a way that was hard to explain to people who only saw us in public. Marcus was perfect in public, funny, polished, effortlessly social. The kind of man who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 3 new friends and an invitation to something else later that night. Everyone loved him. He worked in event coordination for a hotel group, so there was always something. Some dinner, some launch, some rooftop gathering, some quick stop that somehow stretched past midnight. At first, I admired that. I thought he was driven. Then I realized I was seeing more of him on social media than in my own living room. Every time I brought it up, the response was always the same, just rearranged. You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. You knew what my schedule was. Stop making everything heavy. One night I told him I missed him. He didn't even look up from his phone when he said it. Veronica, I'm not your emotional support system. That line stayed with me longer than it should have. Not because it was loud, but because it was quiet, casual, like it didn't cost him anything to say it. The worst part wasn't the arguments. It was the silence that followed them. The kind of silence where you stop bringing things up because you already know how they'll be dismissed. Being alone is one thing. Being with someone and still feeling invisible, that's different. That gets inside your head. Makes you question whether wanting to have dinner together twice in 1 week is somehow asking for too much. Makes you shrink your needs until they barely exist. The night everything finally broke, it wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No cheating reveal. No big cinematic moment. Just exhaustion. It was a Thursday. I got home around 7:10 after a long day of schedules, delayed shipments, and people acting surprised that deadlines are real. I brought takeout from the Thai place downstairs. 2 containers, one for me, one for him. Because earlier that day, Marcus had texted me, I'll probably be home tonight, for once. For once. When I walked in, he was in the bedroom getting ready. Music playing. Closet open. Curling iron plugged in. A black shirt laid out on the bed. Shoes lined up by the mirror. I stood there in the doorway holding 2 bags of food, just looking at the setup. I thought you were staying in tonight, I said. He didn't even turn around. I was. A pause. Then Marin called. There's a rooftop thing at the Whitmore. I need to show up. Of course he did. I set the food down on the counter. How long? I asked. He shrugged, still focused on his reflection. I don't know. Don't wait up. Don't wait up. That part landed differently. Something in me didn't snap. It didn't flare into anger. It just went quiet. Marcus, I said, keeping my voice steady, we haven't had dinner together in 10 days. He sighed immediately. That kind of sigh. The one people use when they want you to know they're already annoyed before you finish speaking. I kept going anyway. I live with you, I said, and I'm still eating alone almost every night. I'm trying to say this without fighting, but I feel lonely in my own apartment. He walked out of the bedroom with one cufflink in, glancing at me like I had interrupted something trivial. And then he laughed. Actually laughed. If you're so lonely, he said, maybe I should leave for good. The room went still. I remember the hum of the air conditioner, the faint vibration of his phone on the dresser, a car door closing somewhere outside. I just looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel confused. I felt clear. Okay, I said, I'll help you pack. He blinked, then smiled like I was bluffing. Wow, he said, that's mature. I know. He rolled his eyes, turned back to the mirror, and kept getting ready like the conversation was over, like I was supposed to follow him. Apologize. Undo what I had just said. I didn't. He left at 8:02. I know because I checked the time when the door shut. I stood in the kitchen for maybe 30 seconds. Then I moved. Not fast, not angry, just certain. I pulled out 3 large storage bins from the hall closet and 2 duffel bags. Folded his clothes carefully. Paired his shoes. Packed his toiletries into a travel case. Gathered his watches, his chargers, his cologne. The books he never read but insisted made him look curated. The jackets he left draped over chairs like he owned the space more than I did. The little things, too. The framed photo he placed on my desk without asking. The hoodie I used to sleep in when he wasn't home. By 10:45, half of it was by the front door. By 11:20, all of it was. I made a list. Itemized. 2 bins, 2 duffels, 1 garment bag, 1 toiletry case, 1 shoe bag. I wasn't doing this halfway. Then I opened the building app and changed the smart lock code. It cost me $48 to reset access. Worth every dollar. I left a note on the kitchen counter. You said maybe you should leave for good. I took you seriously. Your things are packed. Text me tomorrow to arrange pickup. Veronica. Then I sat down, opened my container of pad thai, and ate. Cold. Alone. And somehow, it tasted better than most dinners I had eaten with him in the last 6 months. Just after midnight, my phone buzzed. Lobby camera alert. Then another notification. Access denied. Then the calls started. 1, 3, 5. Then knocking. Loud, sharp, insistent. I walked to the door. Left the chain on. Opened it just a few inches. He saw the bags first, stacked neatly by their entrance. Then he looked at me and froze. His face changed in layers. First confusion, then disbelief. Then that strange little smile people use when they still think reality is about to bend back in their favor. You actually packed my stuff, he said. His voice was half laugh, half accusation, like I had crossed some invisible line by taking him at his word. I kept my hand on the door. You said maybe you should leave for good. He stared at me through the gap. Veronica, I said that in the middle of an argument. No, I said. You said it at the end of one. That landed harder than I expected. I could see it in his face, the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes flicked toward the bags again, then back to me, trying to find the version of me that would soften if he pushed the right button. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he changed tactics. Just like that. His shoulders dropped. His eyes glossed over. His voice went quieter, rougher. I'm tired, he said. I've had a brutal week. Marin's been on me nonstop. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't answer. He kept going. You know how I talk when I'm frustrated. That part always fascinated me. The way people want their words to count when they wound you, but not count when there are consequences. I reached behind me, picked up the itemized list, and slid it through the opening in the door. You can take what you need tonight, I said. Come back tomorrow between 1 and 3 for the rest. I'll let the front office know. He looked down at the paper in his hand like it had personally insulted him. You made a list? Yes. His laugh came back, sharper this time. That's insane. No, I said. What's insane is acting like I'm supposed to guess when you mean what you say. That was when the tears came. Fast. Too fast. He dragged a hand over his face and shook his head like he couldn't believe I was doing this to him. To me, I remember noticing. Not to us. Not to what we had become. To him. You're being cold, he whispered. I looked at him for a long moment. Probably, I said, but not lonely. Then I closed the door. My phone started going off before I made it back to the couch. Calls, then texts, then more calls. I turned the sound off and set it face down on the coffee table. In the morning, there were 27 missed calls, 11 texts, and 1 voicemail that was mostly crying, breathing, and him saying I had embarrassed him. Embarrassed him. That word sat with me while I brushed my teeth. Not hurt me, not ignored me, not dismissed me for months. Embarrassed him. By noon, another message came through. I read that one twice. I can't believe you packed my whole life because I made one comment about leaving. You're acting like I said I was actually done. I saved it immediately. Because yes, that was exactly what he had said. And more than that, it was proof of what he thought this was. Not a breakup. Not a consequence. A bluff I wasn't supposed to call. 4 days passed, and the silence I thought I might get never came. Marcus stayed with his friend Kelsey the first 2 nights. I only knew because the next morning I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, I know this isn't my place, but Marcus is really upset. He didn't mean what he said. Can't you two just talk when everyone's calmer? I read it once, then replied once. No, he said leaving for good was an option. I accepted it. His pickup window today is 1 to 3 through the front office. Kelsey sent back a thumbs down emoji, and then a paragraph so long I could see the bubbles stretching before it arrived. I didn't open it. I had already made my point. At 12:50, I brought Marcus's remaining things downstairs on a luggage cart. The leasing manager, Paula, was at the front desk. Mid-50s, no nonsense. The kind of woman who had probably seen every version of relationship chaos a building could produce and had lost the ability to be impressed by any of it. I explained the situation in about 3 sentences. She looked at the bins, looked at me, then said, "Lease is yours?" "Yes." She nodded once. "Then let's keep this quick and boring." That was exactly what I wanted. Marcus arrived at 1:17 wearing sunglasses and one of my old university hoodies he had taken the first night. Kelsey was with him. So was an attitude he hadn't brought to my door at midnight. Funny how people get braver when they have an audience. He walked into the lobby, looked at the stack of his belongings, then at me. "So this is what you do?" he asked. "You humiliate me in public?" I folded my arms loosely. "We're in an apartment lobby on a Tuesday afternoon." His mouth tightened. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "That calm voice," he snapped. "Like you're above this." Before I could answer, Kelsey jumped in. "This is harsh, Veronica. Seriously, mature adults don't throw away a whole relationship because of one fight." Paula didn't even look up from her screen. "Ma'am," she said flatly, "the pickup window is open. You can take the items now, or maintenance can move them into storage and bill the resident. Your choice." I could have hugged her. Marcus looked embarrassed for half a second, which only made him angrier. He crouched and unzipped one of the duffels right there in the lobby, digging through it like he expected to catch me in negligence. "Where's my gray bracelet?" he asked. "And the leather charger roll? And my black boots?" "I packed every visible item I found," I said. "If anything turns up, I'll arrange a drop-off." Neutral tone, calm face, no bite. That seemed to irritate him more than if I had yelled, because yelling would have given him something. Emotion, drama, proof that he could still pull me into the same exhausting orbit. But I was standing there in jeans and flats with a clipboard in my hand, and there was nothing romantic about that. Nothing salvageable, nothing fuzzy. Just logistics. Maybe that was the cruelest thing to him in the end. Not anger, administrative closure. He took the bins, took the bags, took the frame print he had hung above my desk without asking. And every time he lifted one more piece of himself out of my life, I felt lighter. Not happy, not triumphant, just less crowded. Before leaving, he pushed his sunglasses up into his hair and looked at me in that wounded, theatrical way he knew people found compelling. "I really hope this feels worth it to you." I met his eyes. "It already does." That shut him up for a second. Kelsey muttered something under her breath that sounded like unbelievable, and then they were gone. The lobby doors closed behind them. Paula finally looked up and gave me a long, measuring glance. Then she said, "You want me to note with security that he's not authorized upstairs without office approval?" "Yes," I said. "Done." I thanked her and went back upstairs. The apartment was quieter when I opened the door, obviously. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was that it didn't feel emptier. His shoes were gone from the entryway. His cologne wasn't sitting on the bathroom counter. His jacket wasn't slung over the kitchen chair like he might come through at any second and pick it back up. And yet the place felt more like mine with every absence. That night, Tyler, a mutual friend from our old trivia group, sent me a screenshot of Marcus's story. Black background, white text. "Some people will punish you for admitting you're hurt. Be careful who you're vulnerable with." I stared at it for 3 full seconds before laughing out loud. Vulnerable. That was rich. For the record, Marcus had not been vulnerable with me. He had been careless with me. Those were not the same thing. The next few days became a slow drip of nonsense. He emailed asking for closure. He texted from a Google Voice number, saying he still had mail coming to my apartment. He sent another message asking if he could come by for just 10 minutes to sit in the space and process everything. That one annoyed me more than the angry ones. Sit in the space. Like my home was some healing retreat he had booked for self-discovery. I replied once. "I will forward any mail. Do not come by without prior arrangement through the office." Then I stopped responding. 2 nights later, I got back around 10:30 after having late wings with my friend Dana. And there he was, sitting on the bench outside the building entrance in my old hoodie, head bowed, phone in his hand, looking like a music video version of regret. He stood the second he saw me. "Can we talk for 5 minutes?" "No." I kept walking. "Veronica, please. I'm serious this time." I pulled my keys from my bag. "You were serious the first time. That's why we're here." He followed me toward the door, not close enough to touch me, but close enough that I could feel the pressure of him trying to reclaim familiar ground. Then he said the sentence that erased whatever faint softness I might still have had. "I only said that because you were being exhausting again." I stopped, turned, looked at him. There it was. The truth, stripped of apology. Not remorse, not reflection. Just resentment in nicer clothes. Exhausting, I repeated. He exhaled like he was relieved I finally understood. Yes, every conversation had to become this whole thing. Every small issue turned into some emotional crisis. For 1 second, I actually couldn't speak. Not because I was hurt, because I was hearing him clearly. Maybe for the first time. You know what's exhausting? I said quietly. Eating dinner alone in a home you share with someone who treats you like an interruption. His face flickered. He hadn't expected that. He started crying again, harder now, messier, realer maybe, or maybe just more desperate. But something inside me had already stepped too far away to be pulled back by tears. Not because I was heartless, because I was finally listening to myself. A resident trying to get through the entrance gave us an irritated look and muttered, "Seriously?" Then security came over. Marcus stepped back immediately, wiping at his face, trying to rearrange himself into something less alarming. The guard asked if there was a problem. No, I said. He was just leaving. Marcus looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I think that was the first moment he understood this was not a phase, not a performance, not a punishment I would eventually get tired of enforcing. It was over. He stepped aside, but not before saying, voice trembling, "You're throwing away someone who loves you." I didn't answer. Because love, whatever it was supposed to be, was not what he had been giving me. I went upstairs alone, locked the door behind me, set my bag down on the counter, and stood there in the stillness. No apologies waiting to be extracted from me. No tension hanging in the walls. No performance to decode. Just quiet. Clean, honest quiet. And underneath it, something new. Relief. For the first few days after that night, I thought the worst of it was over. I was wrong. At first, it was just noise. Emails with subject lines like, "We need closure," and "Please don't do this like strangers." Messages from unfamiliar numbers that always revealed themselves within 2 sentences. Voicemails that started soft and ended sharp. Marcus didn't disappear. He multiplied. Every time I blocked one number, another appeared. Every time I ignored one message, 2 more followed. It wasn't loud enough to call it chaos yet, but it wasn't silence either. And that difference matters more than people think, because silence lets you heal. Noise keeps you tethered. 3 days in, I stopped reading anything that came from him unless it contained actual logistics, mail forwarding, remaining items, anything that required a response grounded in reality. Everything else, I let sit, unread, unanswered, unacknowledged. That seemed to bother him more than anything. Not anger, not rejection, absence. The first real escalation came on a Saturday night. I was on my couch halfway through a playoff game when there was a knock at the door. Not loud, not frantic, measured, official. When I opened it, there were 2 police officers standing in the hallway. Polite, professional, observing. "Ma'am," one of them said, "we received a call from someone concerned about your well-being. They said you might be alone and possibly in distress." I blinked at him. For a second, I didn't process it. Then I did, and I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so predictable. "Let me guess," I said. "Anonymous caller?" The officer didn't confirm it, but his expression didn't deny it either. I stepped aside and gestured toward the apartment. "I'm fine," I said. "I'm watching a game and eating popcorn. You're welcome to come in and verify that I'm not in immediate danger." They didn't step inside, but they relaxed slightly. I explained the situation in short, clean sentences. Break up, unwanted contact. Multiple attempts to re-engage. I showed them the messages, the call logs, the note I had left, the pickup arrangement. One of the officers, Landry, according to his badge, nodded slowly. "Keep documenting," he said quietly. "If this continues, you can file for harassment." I thanked them, closed the door, and stood there for a moment with my hand still on the handle. That was the first time something shifted from annoying to intentional, from emotional to strategic, because a wellness check isn't concern, not when it's weaponized. That same night, I filed a report. Nothing dramatic, no confrontation, just a record, a line in the sand that said, "This is no longer personal. This is documented." 2 days later, flowers showed up at my office. White lilies, clean arrangement, expensive. There was a card attached. "Oh, to the least lonely woman I know." I stared at that line longer than I should have, because it was exactly who Marcus was in one sentence. Something designed to look soft that cut just underneath it. I took a picture of the card, then handed the flowers to the receptionist. "You can keep these or throw them out," I said. She looked at the card, then at me. "I'm throwing them out," she said. "Good call." By Wednesday, he escalated again. This time, he showed up at my job. For context, I work at a distribution hub. You don't just walk into a place like that. There's a front desk, badge access, cameras, systems designed to keep things controlled. So when my supervisor, Alyssa, called me into her office and said, "There's a man up front saying he's your boyfriend and needs to grab something from your car," I already knew. "Ex-boyfriend," I said. Alyssa raised an eyebrow. "Do you want him back here?" "No," I said. "Don't let him pass the desk." She nodded once. "Got it." Marcus left before security reached the lobby, but not before leaving an envelope with my name written across the front in that careful, deliberate handwriting he used when he wanted something. Inside was a note. "I miss you. I made a mistake. I was lonely too. Can we please stop punishing each other?" I read it once, then folded it back along the crease and put it in my bag. Not because I was considering it, because it was evidence. Notice the shift there. Now he was lonely too. Interesting how loneliness only became real to him once it belonged to him. That afternoon, Marin emailed me. Not a text, not a call. An email through my company's public contact form. Subject line, "Please be humane." I almost admired the audacity. The message was long, structured, clinical in tone. She said Marcus wasn't sleeping, that he was spiraling, that unresolved endings could cause psychological damage, that I needed to stop stonewalling and allow a conversation for closure. Closure. That word again. I forwarded the email to my personal account, then blocked the sender, then showed Alyssa. Within an hour, HR was involved. Within 2 hours, I was told that if Marcus showed up again, he would be formally trespassed from company property. 3 days later, he tested that boundary. He came back. This time he didn't pretend. No apology, no soft voice. Just anger. He waited near employee parking and stepped into my path as I walked in from my car. "You really got HR involved?" he said. I didn't stop walking. "You came to my job," I said. "That's because you won't answer me." "Correct." That seemed to snap something. "I look crazy now because of you," he said. I turned then. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just enough to face him. "Nobody can do that for you," I said. Not my most diplomatic moment. But it was true. He slapped the side of my car. Not hard enough to damage it, but loud enough that 2 people turned. Security arrived within seconds. Marcus's entire posture changed instantly. Smile, casual tone, hands up. "Just a misunderstanding," he said. Security didn't care. They escorted him off the property and issued a formal trespass warning. I took a copy of that paperwork the next morning and walked it straight into a lawyer's office. $400 later, Marcus had a cease and desist letter delivered to Kelsey's apartment and emailed to every address he had used to contact me. I thought that would be enough. It wasn't. Because obsession doesn't respond to boundaries. It reacts to them. The worst moment came the following week. I had started taking a Saturday cooking class downtown. Nothing fancy. Just something to fill space that no longer needed to be filled with anxiety. That's where I met Daniel. He laughed at the way I chopped basil like I was arguing with it. We got coffee after class. It was easy, light, uncomplicated in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I hadn't told Marcus that. I didn't need to. But someone else must have. Because Thursday night, my phone rang from an unknown number. I didn't answer. The voicemail came seconds later. His voice. Calm. Too calm. "I know you're home," he said. "Your kitchen light is on." My entire body went still. I didn't move towards the window. I stepped back from it. Listened. 30 seconds later, another voicemail. "I'm in the blue sedan across the street. I just want 5 minutes. If you come down now, I'll leave." That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. Not annoyance. Not frustration. Fear. Cold, clear, immediate. I didn't hesitate. I called the police. Building security was already on their way. Another resident had reported a car idling where it shouldn't be. By the time officers arrived, Marcus had moved the car. But they found him nearby. I showed them the voicemail. Security pulled footage from the entrance cameras. Timestamps matched. Presence confirmed. Pattern established. He was warned again. This time, formally. The next morning, I filed for a protective order. Not because I thought he would break in, because I was done living with that level of intrusion. A person who makes you feel lonely is one thing. A person who won't let you be alone after you leave them, that's something else entirely. Filing for the protective order didn't feel dramatic. It felt administrative. That was the part no one tells you. When something crosses into legal territory, it doesn't suddenly become louder or more emotional. It becomes quieter, colder, more precise. I spent that entire morning organizing everything. Not just gathering it, structuring it. Screenshots labeled by date. Call logs exported and printed. Voicemails transcribed word for word. The incident report from my building. The trespass notice from my workplace. The cease and desist letter. the wellness check record. Each piece on its own could be explained away. Together they told a pattern, and patterns are hard to argue with. By the time I walked into the courthouse to file, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't second-guessing. I was done. That was the difference. The next few days were strangely quiet. Not peaceful. Not yet, but quieter. Like something had shifted just enough to interrupt the cycle. Marcus stopped calling from unknown numbers. Stopped emailing. Stopped showing up. At least directly. Indirectly, he found other ways. A mutual friend reached out just to check in. Another mentioned casually that Marcus was having a really hard time. Someone else said he didn't understand why I was being so cold. It was subtle, but it was there. The narrative was changing, slowly bending in his favor. I didn't correct it, not publicly, not loudly, because I had already learned something important. Truth doesn't need to chase noise. It just needs to exist long enough to outlast it. Then something happened I didn't expect. Marcus's brother Mason texted me. I'm not getting in the middle. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry he's dragging this out. I figured there was more to the story. I stared at that message for a second, then replied. There is. He sent back a simple thumbs up. No questions, no defense, just acknowledgement. That mattered more than a long apology would have. It meant someone close to him saw it clearly, even if Marcus didn't. 2 days later, his mother called. Denise. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Her voice was controlled, careful. Marcus says you've been cruel. There was a pause. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Denise, I said, with respect, your son told me maybe he should leave for good because I said I felt lonely in the relationship. I agreed. Since then, he's contacted my job, my apartment, my friends, and now he's leaving voicemails outside my building. Silence. Then she said, he told me you threw him out over dinner plans. Of course he did. I let out a slow breath. No, I said. I ended it over months of being dismissed. That sentence just made it obvious. Another silence. Longer this time. Then she said something that shifted everything slightly. Send me the voicemail. So I did. The one where his voice was calm. Too calm. I know you're home. Your kitchen light is on. She didn't respond immediately. But 10 minutes later, a message came through. I understand more than I did before. No apology. No defense. Just understanding. That was enough. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. I spent the days leading up to it not thinking about Marcus, but preparing for the version of him I knew would show up. Because men like him don't collapse under pressure. They rebrand. They adjust. They soften their tone, sharpen their language, and reshape the narrative until it sounds almost reasonable. I knew exactly what I was going to walk into, and I was right. The morning of the hearing, I arrived early, folder in hand, everything organized, everything labeled. Marcus walked in 10 minutes later. If I hadn't known better, I might have thought he was there for something else entirely. Beige sweater, neutral tones, hair neat, face calm, no anger, no desperation, just controlled vulnerability. The good version, the one people fall for. He didn't look at me at first. Then he did, just for a second. And in that second, I saw it. Not regret, not fear, calculation. Then it was gone. His lawyer did most of the talking. Words like miscommunication, emotional distress, closure. That word again. Always that word. My client was simply seeking closure, the attorney said at one point. My client never intended to cause fear. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. When it was my turn, I didn't match their tone. I didn't argue. I didn't perform. I kept it simple. I ended the relationship clearly, I said. I arranged for the return of his belongings. I asked for no further contact outside of logistics. I paused. After that, he used third parties, unknown numbers, workplace visits, and physical presence outside my residence to continue contact. Then I stopped. No extra words, no emotional appeal, just facts. The judge nodded slightly, then asked the question that mattered. Is there audio of the voicemail referenced in the filing? Yes, I said. It was played in the courtroom, loud enough for everyone to hear. I know you're home. Your kitchen light is on. Hearing it there. In that room, stripped of context, stripped of familiarity, it sounded worse. Sharper. Colder. The judge looked at Marcus. Did you leave that message? His lawyer started to speak. Marcus didn't let him. Yes, he said. And just like that, the performance cracked. Not completely, but enough. Because some things don't need explanation. They just need to be heard. The decision didn't take long. The judge granted a 1-year protective order. No contact, direct or indirect. No third-party communication. No approaching within 300 feet of my home or workplace. No social media references intended to provoke contact. 1 year, I would have settled for peace. This just made it official. When it was over, Marcus looked at me one more time. That same look people give when they're trying to pull one last reaction out of you. Closure, recognition, anything. I gave him nothing. I walked out of that courtroom without stopping, without turning back, without wondering if I had done the right thing, because I knew I had. The hearing ended the way most people imagine those moments do. Formal, quiet, almost underwhelming. No dramatic speeches, no emotional breakdowns, no final confrontation that ties everything into something cinematic and satisfying. Just a judge signing a document, a clerk handing me a copy, and Marcus standing on the other side of the room, suddenly irrelevant. I walked out of the courthouse into sunlight that felt brighter than it should have, not because anything magical had happened, because something had finally stopped. I called Alyssa from the parking lot. Orders granted, I said. She didn't hesitate. Good. Send me a copy for HR. I will. Then I hung up, sat in my car for a minute, and realized I hadn't eaten. So I drove to a small cafe 2 blocks away and ordered a chicken sandwich and coffee. That was it. That was the ending. Courtroom. Paperwork. Lunch. And for the first time in weeks, nothing following me home. No messages, no unknown numbers. No sense that I needed to check my phone every 5 minutes just in case something had escalated while I wasn't looking. Just quiet. Real quiet. The kind that doesn't impress on your ears. The kind that settles. The next few weeks tied up the remaining loose ends. HR flagged Marcus's name and photo. Security had instructions. My building added the protective order to their system. Denise sent one final message. I hope things stay calm. I'm sorry it got this far. I didn't respond. Not out of anger. Out of completion. Mason sent a thumbs up emoji after I told him the order had been granted. Simple. Efficient. Exactly who he had been from the beginning. As for Marcus, from what little I heard, the story he told people shifted depending on the audience. To some, he said he had been abandoned during a vulnerable period. To others, that I had overreacted to a misunderstanding. Maybe that's what he needed. A version of events that didn't require him to sit with what he had actually done. I didn't correct it, because I didn't need to. Peace doesn't require consensus. It just requires distance. And I had that now. Real distance. Not just physical, emotional, mental, the kind that gives you space to hear yourself again. My life didn't transform overnight. It expanded. Quietly. I started cooking again. Actual meals. Not just something quick between tension and exhaustion. I rearranged the apartment. Moved the desk back to where I wanted it before Marcus had turned the living room into something that looked better on camera than it felt in real life. My sister came by one Saturday and helped me shift furniture around. We laughed more in those few hours than I had laughed in months. I joined a Thursday night recreational volleyball league Alyssa had been telling me about. At first, I almost didn't go. Then I did, and it felt normal. Not forced. Not performative. Just something I chose. Work changed too. A month after everything settled, Alyssa moved me into an operations lead role. More responsibility. Better pay. Fewer people dumping last-minute chaos onto my desk. It wasn't life-changing, but it was forward. And then there was Daniel. We kept going to the cooking class. Kept getting coffee after. Then dinner. Then nights that didn't feel like something I had to prepare for emotionally. He asked questions and waited for answers. That sounds small. It's not. One night, he came over. We made tacos. Watched a terrible action movie. Nothing remarkable. Nothing dramatic. And somewhere in the middle of it, I realized something that hit me harder than anything that had happened in the courtroom. 3 hours had passed. 3 full hours. And I hadn't once measured what I was about to say before I said it. I hadn't filtered, adjusted, anticipated dismissal. I had just spoken, existed, fully, without editing myself to stay comfortable for someone else. That was the moment I understood something I hadn't been able to articulate before. Loneliness is not always about being alone. Sometimes it's about not being allowed to exist fully in front of the person you're with. With Marcus, I had been lonelier sharing a bed than I was now sitting at my kitchen table eating breakfast by myself. And that difference changes everything. For a long time, I thought patience made me good. That absorbing small dismissals without reacting meant I was mature. That asking for basic connection was somehow a flaw I needed to manage. It wasn't. I wasn't needy. I was underfed, emotionally, and I kept trying to call it love. The moment Marcus said, "If you're so lonely, maybe I should leave for good," he thought he was pointing out my weakness. He wasn't. He was exposing the truth. Not about me. About us. About what the relationship had become. Loneliness wasn't the problem. It was the signal. And the second I stopped ignoring it, everything changed. So no, I don't regret helping him pack. I regret not doing it sooner. Because sometimes peace doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't come with closure speeches or perfect understanding. Sometimes it sounds like a door closing, a lock clicking, and the silence that follows, finally belonging to you.